Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Danish with Nabi. In today's segment of Reportage, I am joined by Dr. Mujibur Rehman to talk about his new book, Shikwai Hind, which is published by Simons and Schuster. The book talks in detail about the political future of Muslims in India. More from the author. Dr. Mujib, in the beginning of the book, you have compared the condition of Indian Muslims with the African Americans. Is the condition of Indian Muslims so bad in the country?
Well, the purpose of comparison is essentially to reflect on the possibilities of historical experiences that people have come across when a majority community has dominated over a minority community, right? So what are the options available? So if you go inside the book, you'll find that there are several possibilities, which is about not just African Americans, but a lot of other people. I'm not talking about that Muslims are going to be enslaved in this country in a manner that African Americans were enslaved back in America. What I'm trying to say is this: when a community dominates over another community, and there is a loss of rights of the other community, there are different possibilities, and African Americans are a living evidence of what human beings can do to another set of human beings. Right? There is this perception that human beings are decent and civilized, and they can only do this amount of atrocities or injustice to another people. But human beings can go to any extent to do injustice on another people. So, a lot of people compare Indian state possibility of becoming a fascist state at one point of time, and therefore the sort of situations that the Jews experienced in the 1930s and 40s during the World War in Germany could be replicated in India. So that's some scholars are talking in terms of politics about it. So I decided to compare it with respect to Americans, with African Americans, and I do mention a sentence where I say that I'm not saying that slavery could be replicated. What I'm saying is this: most of the painful experiences that African Americans have gone through because of the domination and loss of rights could also be witnessed. And so then I give number of examples. Say, for instance, lynchings. African Americans have experienced widespread lynchings in America. And in India, we have that particular sad practice has already become quite frequent, and not enough steps are taken to deal with it. It could have been easily dealt with, despite the fact that there is a Supreme Court judgment asking the government to come out with a law. I think sometime back in 2018, even today, we don't have a law with regard to that particular issue. So likewise, there are several other cases that I have mentioned about it. Say, for instance, segregation back in America, which was an African American experience. Here we have also started coming across ghettoization and resistance and by a lot of Hindu communities not accepting Muslims as neighbors or allowing them to live in the same neighborhood. And as a result of which Muslims, even if they can afford a good neighborhood, often choose to stay back in the Hindu neighborhood in big cities of India, particularly in cities which are affected by riots. Say Ahmedabad, you have a widespread ghettoization of it. And so there are a number of instances that I have laid down at 3 or 4 conditions which are very similar, evolving in that direction. So that's why I have tried to compare the two. Yeah.
And interestingly, you say that this minority caste group, which is a dominant minority group, helps the BJP Hindutva project. And no one talks about it, no one writes about it. It's a small minority group, but is a dominant caste group.
Yeah. So my framework of analysis is quite different from other people, other scholars who are looking at the problem. So there is a general argument, both in media and also in academia and research everywhere. It's about Hindu-Muslim conflict. Now, the question is, there is nothing called a Hindu society as such. Hindu society composed of various caste groups. Now, who matters in Hindu society? It's the dominant caste, and the dominant 5-10% of dominant caste who have a big say, decisive say with respect to Hindu society. So when we were talking about India was a secular society, we would come across that this dominant caste was had embraced secularism as one of its, as an ideology. Now we come across that the dominant caste has abandoned that particular ideology, as a result of which we come across great deal of intolerance towards Muslims. It's very important to understand that who are the real people who are involved, or the people with authority or power are involved in practicing a particular ideology, the ideology of exclusion and discrimination, whose consequences are faced by Muslims. So I suggest that it is important to look at the caste configurations, and so therefore talking about Hindu-Muslim framework does not offer us enough perspective to understand what is going on in India. And as I suggest and refer to the literature, a research by Amrita Basu, who suggests that wherever dominant castes have supported BJP, anti-Muslim violence have grown. This research was published by a book called Violent Conjectures by Cambridge University Press, based on the empirical study of Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, and two other states. So it is important to break it down to understand how this shift in the politics and how the majoritarian politics operates in India. So it's not a Hindu-Muslim conflict the way that it is being portrayed. Yeah.
Interestingly, you write in the book that Muslims carved two nations for themselves, one Pakistan, another Bangladesh. But when it comes to the lynching, they have been absolutely silent. There are no protests from Muslims. Why is it so?
Yeah, that's the reflection of depoliticization of Muslim community. That's what I'm trying to suggest about it, that the community, even if it is 200 million strong, at the time a partition happened, and some Muslims who participated in the separatist movement and created Pakistan, at the time of partition, the Muslim population was roughly around 95 million or something like that. About today, Muslim population is 200 million, which is twice the size of what it used to be in 1947 or so, or more than that. Now, if you come across lynching, not just lynching, take, for example, abuses that Muslims generally hear, go to
Or even
Pakistan for
the case of CAA. Muslims couldn't gather themselves and protest against all these things. But when they protested, they founded Pakistan, then they founded Bangladesh, which were the two big issues. But when it comes to these small issues like lynching, not a small issue, hypothetically a small issue, but they are unable to organize themselves and protest against these things.
Yeah, that's because there is a crisis in the community's leadership. There is a deep crisis in the political consciousness of the community, who they are, what sort of rights they have, and all of that about it. So there is a massive depoliticization.
Dr. Mujib, I just want to understand and learn from you. Was it deliberately done that the government, I mean to say the successive governments, didn't allow the Muslim leadership to grow?
No, I don't think that, the government, there is a very limited role that the government could play in terms of politicization. For instance, if you look at...
it's not the successive governments, why did we fail to build up a leadership in last 75 years?
Yeah. That's a very important question. We have to think about it a little carefully. When I'm talking about failure of or the lack of Muslim consciousness or political consciousness of a Muslim community about their rights, I'm also referring to say Dalits. Dalits of India are far more active and assertive with respect to their rights. Likewise, African Americans back in America, they are also quite active. And you look at Black Lives Matters and a lot of movements in America. It's quite a big voice and organized and effective, as opposed to Muslim dissent or Muslim resistance in India. It's very meek, unorganized, and you rarely hear it. So in last 70 years, what has happened is the community, because India became a secular country, so a vast number of Muslims have become integrated with the secular politics of India. So it's very difficult for the Muslim elites. So say Muslim cultural elites, say the Shah Rukh Khans and the others in Bollywood. They don't talk about Muslim issues or injustices about Muslim communities, because they have all grown up in secular culture, and as a result of which they are inhibited to talk about identity issues about it. So you can be secular and talk about your own identity issues as well. Say, for instance, Barack Obama also talks about race question. At the same time, he is able to articulate, the race question whenever there is a, and also at the same time, he's acceptable to the white people over there, part of it, right? So in India, people could do it. But as somehow other, partly because the fact that the politics in general, talking about politics and rights in general, is something that is seen in India as very contemptful, particularly by middle class, upper middle class, and well-educated people. They think politics is a very dirty thing. But it is only through politics that you understand about rights. You don't understand rights by doing business.
So, Dr. Mujib, can we put it in another way? Can we say the Muslim elites who matter in the society, they have basically failed and let down their community?
Yeah. So they have a big role to play. They have a big role to play. Their silence has cost a lot in terms of community standing in societies. Because what is happening in India today should not be seen as something that abruptly started in 2014, or because of one particular politician. So what? Since I argue that what we are going through is an ideological warfare, this majoritarian ideology has been operating and campaigning to find feet and strength in India, both electorally and non-electorally at a societal level for years. It's a story of 100 years or so. So the resistance for that, or assertion of secular politics or inclusive politics, has not been as systematic as the campaign that the majoritarian politics and all the organizations associated with Hindu right groups have been doing. So there is no comparison between the two. So whenever there is a demolition of Babri Masjid, there will be some resistance. So whenever, say, lynching happens, so there, when Akhlaq lynching happens, so there was a huge, particularly in media, there were a lot of discussions and all of that, but largely it was led by secular groups and artists and intellectuals and all of it, not by Muslim groups as such. But the question is, even by secular groups, it's very unorganized. It's very episodic. It's kind of, suddenly there is an anger and there is some noise and debate, and then after a couple of days or weeks, it disappears, a part of it. Whereas majoritarian politics or the Hindu right politics is very systematic. So they have been working very systematically over the years to pursue their agenda, and presenting various kinds of stereotypes about Muslims, about that this is a violent community, that they are very disloyal to India, that they don't belong here, and a lot of things about it. Yeah.
Oh, so Muslims on various societal levels have basically failed their community, be it the elites, be it the upper middle class, or the middle class. We have failed
Yes.
to cater to our community.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In the book, in the book, I also, when you talk in the book about the Muslim rule in subcontinent, one gets you have used the word so-called Muslim rule. One gets an impression that you are not happy with the Muslim rulers who have ruled in the past on the subcontinent. May I know the reason?
Yeah, there was nothing called a Muslim rule as such. When you talk about Muslim rule, there are two things. The first thing is this, in a manner that historiography has been developed in India. So there are a lot of scholars, particularly Romila Thappar, has argued about it, that one of the reasons of communalism in India is because the way that history is looked at. So what historians have done is this, that they have looked at the rule by Muslim dynasties as Muslim rule, whereas British rule as British rule, not as Christian rule. And so the point I was trying to make is this, that it is not that the entire community was involved in ruling the India. What we witness is this, when you look back the history of that particular period, Mughal or pre-Mughal period. So there are different Muslim families and dynasties, monarchies, who were ruling India at different points of time. While ruling, they were also fighting with each other. When they were fighting, it is the Muslim ruler who were fighting with another Muslim ruler. They were also fighting within the families. As you all know, that Aurangzeb became the emperor by killing his own brothers and putting his own father in prison about it.
This was political, nothing to do with the religion, especially Islam.
Nothing to do with nothing to do with the religion about it. So these
and
are
now
all
they have flipped the story that everything had to do with Islam.
That's right. That's right. As if all Muslim community was involved in it, and that there were also a lot of poor people who happen to be Muslims used to live under Muslim rule. It is not that then just because that the king happens to be. It's like just because that there is a Gujarati who's the prime minister, all Gujaratis have become suddenly rich. That's not true about it. So there are a lot of Gujaratis who lead very simple and ordinary life about it. Likewise, just because that some people claim that this particular state is ruled by a Hindu party, that does not mean that all Hindus have become very rich and all Hindus have become, are enjoying a lot of freedom and power. That's not true about it. So that's exactly what I'm trying to explain. So there was a Muslim rule, but there was not a Muslim rule as such. I'm not saying this about it. There are other scholars who have also said this. Particularly Muhammad Mujib, in his famous book on Indian Muslims, discusses in details. This is Muslim dynasties who were ruling Muslim societies, and because symbolically they were Muslims, so some of them were communal, and some of them were also very religious, and some of them were secular. Or were far more accommodative. Say, for instance, Akbar was generally known as being far more accommodative. So there are different sets of behavior and responses that has come out from different dynasties. And what Hindu right has done, or what communal analysis of history of Indian history has done, is that it has painted everything in one brush. And it is saying that Muslims were ruling and Islam was dangerous and all Muslims are responsible. And now it is time for us to take revenge. And every Muslim is an Aurangzeb or a Tipu Sultan. We have to teach them a lesson about it. So there is this anger that comes out of it, likely because the analysis is not
it's a part of this bigger Hindutva project which you have mentioned in the book, because with all these things they can cater to a majority of the people right now across the country.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's what's important to look at it from the caste point of view, the dominant caste, and this about of it. So this whole framework of Hindu-Muslim is not something that is essentially helping us to understand the problem.
Yeah. Dr. Mujib, another interesting anecdote which I would like to share from your book is that you write there is this general perception about Shia Muslims helping this Hindutva project. While as you write in the book, it's not only the Shia Muslims who are with them. Many Sunni Muslims are too part of this project. And then why are we only after Shia people?
Well, I'm not saying that we are after Shia people. So there is some differences between Shia and Sunni Muslim community because they are two different sects, though broadly fall into Islam. There are some Shia politicians and clergy members who are supportive of BJP in the beginning. I'm not too sure whether they are still supportive of it. But why is it that there are some Muslims in BJP? When a political force becomes dominant, a lot of people make compromises because of the monopoly of power, because BJP enjoys so much of power. So obviously, there are a lot of people who are joining BJP for sake of enjoying those fruits of power, hoping that they will get something about of it. So there are Muslims, few Muslims who have joined. Likewise, for instance, during Nazi Germany, there are a lot of Jews who also were part of Nazi regime, helping Nazi regime with respect to, informations and intelligence and a lot of things about of it, because they just wanted to save their own skin. They were looking for the individual exit. So likewise, there are also Muslims who are supporting or there are also, it was reported, roughly around 8% of Indian Muslims have voted for BJP this time. So there is not much of an ideological clarity among Muslims what sort of positioning that they should take. So out of this confusion and because of the domination of the BJP, so some individual Muslims are looking for individual exit, that how to negotiate this particular situation and get out of it. Forget about, I can't save the entire Muslim community, I can't save Islam, and I can't save all minorities. So let me just look after myself and my family and try to make best of the situations. So under this kind of mindset, a lot of Muslims have become supportive of BJP, and they belong to
both sides, Shia as well as Sunni, not any particular sect.
No, I don't think that there's an evidence which suggests that Shias are joining in droves and Muslims, Sunnis are not joining it.
Dr. Mujib, very importantly, I would like to learn from you, because you have written about the Indian Muslims. How do you view Asaduddin Owaisi's politics? Because in the book, you have again mentioned about the political parties who do not talk about Muslims. even be it Congress or Rahul Gandhi, they talk about minorities but not about the Muslims. Also, you write in the book that Aam Aadmi Party even did not go to the Delhi when Delhi riots happened in 2020. When Shaheen Bagh was there, they were nowhere on the scene. So, in all this context, how do you see Asaduddin Owaisi? Because
Well,
he
Asad,
seems, what is behind the curtains, no one knows. But on face of it, he seems to be the lone voice of Muslims in India as of now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's definitely true from the point of view of media portrayal. There are two things. One is that how Asaduddin Owaisi is portrayed in media, because he's quite visible, right? In the media, he is visible, and most of the Muslim issues, he's somebody who is sought after and seen, and is interviewed and asked and all of that about it. But the question that I'm interested in asking is that what is the substantive political power that he enjoys? In the end, in the present Lok Sabha, there is just one member of parliament from his own political party. It's a very small political party with a very, very big ambition, right? If you compare Badruddin Ajmal's political party had a bigger political base, but the question is this: hardly people can recognize who Badruddin Ajmal is. If Badruddin Ajmal today, is on the streets, not many people outside Assam could be able to recognize this gentleman happens to be Badruddin Ajmal. So it is from that visibility point of view. Then obviously Asaduddin Owaisi is far more visible, perhaps one of the most visible Muslim politician in Indian politics today. And he does not hesitate to take a position, whether you agree with his position or not, but he has a position on all issues of Muslims concerning Muslim community about of it. So as a political force, however, it's very negligible. It's just one member of parliament. So that's hardly anything in terms of substantive political force. Likewise, even in assembly, Telangana assembly, it's only few seats. Of course, like since last several years that he has been trying to find a national footprint, it has been almost impossible on his part to find a national footprint in major states like Uttar Pradesh and
But
others.
but once
Yes.
once it was same for the Jan Sangh, which then converted to BJP. They
That's
were
right. That's
also
right.
in complete minority. They were nowhere on the national scene. Right now, they are almost 300, 350 seats in last 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the question is this, there is a difference. I don't think that Asaduddin Owaisi, in my sense, could be able to achieve even 20% of what Bharatiya Janata Sangh achieved, partly because that Muslim community is very scattered. Electorally, they are positioned in a manner that, there may be a significant population in different assembly and parliament constituencies.
But
There may
history
be.
says us something different. If we look at 1937 elections, Muslims were
Hmm,
again scattered. And Jinnah at that time was nowhere to be seen. They only won 109 seats out of 493 seats, Muslim League.
yeah,
Come
yeah.
1956, they almost swept all the Muslim majority areas.
Yeah, but the
So shall
demographic
we draw
structure.
parallels between Jinnah and
No, no,
Asaduddin
no,
Owaisi?
no, no, no. I don't think that's really a good way of looking at contemporary Indian politics. And I have written about it that Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi is no Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and had Muhammad Ali Jinnah been alive today, he would have played a very different kind of politics. There are a couple of things I wanted to emphasize, very important because it's a very, very important question, and we have to address it very carefully. And the first thing is that the demographic of Indian Muslims today is very different from the demography of 1930s and 40s in electoral constituencies about it, right? That's a huge, huge, big difference. The second thing is this, uh, that even if all Muslims are united for a political party on their own, this idea of separate Muslim political party in modern India is not going to work out. It hasn't worked out. It's not going to work out. That's why I argue that the best option for Indian Muslims is to be in alignment with secular people in India and try to forge a relationship so that they could be able to take on. And there are many secular forces who are interested to take on BJP. So therefore, we have to do that. So that's the strategy that Muslims
Doc,
should
doc,
allow.
Dr. Mujib, it's a very interesting topic, but it needs another episode of reportage. And I promise you that I will come back on this Asaduddin Owaisi topic with you, and we will record a new episode on it. Let's keep this episode to your book. Coming back to your book, there is an underlining theme of your book which I could sense, or which I had this understanding, that you want only to talk about the political future of Muslims, whereas other scholars, they haven't touched this topic. Why is it necessary to make Indian Muslims understand about their political future?
Well, the question of Muslims have been discussed in India quite vigorously, right? And whenever there is a discussion concerning Muslims, it's more about their economic backwardness, it's about their cultural rights and all of that part of it. So I have looked at it in a historical perspective. And as I say, that Indian Muslims are confronting what I call the third political moment, right? So, say after the publication of such a report, there were a lot of discussions concerning Muslim economic backwardness, right?
Dr. Mujib, before you finish up the answer, let me, for the viewers, for the audience, tell them the first step you talk about 1857, then it was
Yeah.
1947, and now you're talking about 2014. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, 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 no. You are absolutely right. So I look at it from the point of view of I
So
deploy this
these are
three
three
political moments
political moments of Indian Muslims in the
in
subcontinent.
Indian Muslims. That's
Yeah,
right.
please
That's right.
continue with your answer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in 1857, what happened was that Muslim community realized that they would not come back into political power, and they will be basically being treated as subjects. And so they try to find out an answer to deal with it post 1857. In 1947, partition happened, and there was a new country that came out, but still Indian Muslims were promised equal status. So the third political moment, what increasingly Indian Muslims have started realizing, is that they're not equal, as various situations and various experiences demonstrate that increasingly they are facing, as if they are not citizens of India, or they are second or third class citizens of India. That is what is being written about Indian Muslims. Uh, so so the reason why I emphasize political future question is this: in 1957, there was a political framework that essentially developed and argued that Muslims are equal to non-Muslims in India. Hindus and Sikhs and others, in terms of their rights, are equal about it. So even if they are considered economically backward, there were debates. So because of that particular framework, it was the obligation on the part of the state to respond to this, because theoretically it is argued that they are equal. So therefore, state has an obligation to look after their backwardness, right? So once you cease to be theoretically equal, so then the state will not have any obligation to look after you, right? So that's exactly what is increasingly happening. What is increasingly happening, that Muslims are not seen as legitimately equal to others, and there is no equal law. So I say that unless you retain or secure your political equality with other communities, so then you are outside the polity or outside the political structure. And
And
as a result of which, you cannot
and
be
the
able to.
onus and the onus completely lies on the community, the elite of the community, the well-to-do families, the upper middle class of of Muslim community.
No, not only on them. I think the question that we have to ask is this: they do carry a significant part of responsibility, but so that's the question that we have to ask is this: in Indian politics today, you have two specific forms of politics. There is one politics which wants to be inclusive, even if it is not the most ideal form in terms of practice. And there is another which believes in majoritarian politics, which believes in exclusion and all of that about of it. So I think it is the responsibility of all who are believing in inclusive politics, who believe that Muslims should be part of it, who believe in that India should be a land where people of all religion, faith, and culture can live together peacefully with equal rights. It is a responsibility of all of them part of it. My argument is that the Muslim community or Muslim leadership has not been able to contribute to that movement significantly because the Muslim elites are depoliticized, because Muslim middle class is indifferent to politics, because average ordinary Muslims of such a massive number of 200 million, you can see people talk about CAA as a big example of the protest of minority community. I'm slightly disappointed with that. I'm not celebrating as such a big movement. It is a good movement, but not a big movement. You compare CAA with the farmers movement. You look at the resources and if you simply visit the site of Sahin Bagh and the farmers movement, you can easily see the difference, right? So farmers of India are not, so that's what I was trying to I can give example to this, because I think there is a need for Muslims to become far more politically conscious about their rights and far more organized, and they should know where they really stand in society, and they also build relationship with other communities and try to build and contribute to the inclusive India.
Dr. Mujib,
Yeah.
I am terribly running out of time. We have recorded for over 30 minutes now. So I am posting my last question to you, and I want you to be very brief so that we can conclude this intriguing interview. In the book, you write that Muslim community needs a new Sir Syed Khan. Who do you think can be that person for the Muslim community now?
No, I'm not saying exactly that. What I'm saying is this: some Muslims look at Sir Syed Khan. Sir Syed Khan epitomizes, very high degree of Muslim consciousness or awareness with respect to Muslim rights, and particularly education and all of that about it. So clearly, there is a need for such kind of hopes that did not have to depend on one charismatic individual like Sir Syed Ahmad Khan about it. It could be multiple number of people in different walks of life. So as such, I would not say that there is somebody one should look up to, so like India needs another Gandhi, or in Dalits need another
But
Ambedkar.
Muslims do need a Sir Syed now.
No. What Muslim need is this: that they should be far more organized, and they should have,
But the community can
internalized.
only organize under a good leader.
Yeah, that's right. So I
So
totally
in
agree
other
with.
words, we need a Sir Syed.
Sir Syed is required, but Sir Syed of a new kind, not of a post 1857 model.
We need a
Because
Sir Syed for 2024.
that's right. It's a new kind of Sir Syed who could be able to build relationship with other communities, particularly Hindu communities or Hindu upper castes and Dalits and all of them, and also simultaneously encourage Muslims to work hard to connect and to be aware of their rights and aware about how to protect their own dignity, their own identity, and all of that about it. So in that broad sense, that we do need another Syed Khan. Yeah.
Dr. Mujib, thank you very much for talking to me. It was a pleasure to host you on my show, and let me hold your book once again so that it reaches maximum people. They buy it, read it, and understand about the condition of Indian Muslim. Thank you very much for talking to me. Thank you
so much.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.